So I really am glad to see all of you here today. So I'm just going to run through the basic ways to use PSGD for both your summer internship / fellowship search and then your post-grad job search. But something that was realize now while I'm sharing my screen, sort of running through this with you, is that I can't see the chat. So if there's an active question in the chat, if someone can just let me know so I can answer it as I go. But other than that, I'm gonna get started. And again, please feel free to interrupt me if there's anything that's unclear or confusing as we go through this. So when you log on to PSGD, this is going to be the first page you see, your home screen. I'm going to reference back to this home screen a lot. The top toolbar here is sort of your bread and butter of using the site, if you will. I'm logged in as an administrator on the account, but you are welcome to, again, use this top feature right here. And then this is your account button as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is run through your summer job search. And so the easiest way to do that from this page is to hit search jobs. Also, as an FYI, the URLs for all of these are usually just PSJD and whatever button you're trying to look for. So our search jobs function is just psjd.org/search-jobs. So one of the things I want to highlight is I'm going to split this into two separate portions. So this first portion, I am going to focus on looking for opportunities for the summer if you are a 1L or a 2L. And so when you first run a job search, the queue is going to automatically pull all of the active jobs that we currently have in the database. And this number is always increasing because we're constantly getting job tips. There are job tips right now that I have to source that are coming in the middle of this webinar. And so I highly recommend using our search functions and tools right here to sort of sift and winnow through the things that you're looking for. A few new features that we've added to the site, given the pandemic that we're experiencing, is this remote and offsite work feature. I highly recommend you take advantage of this. I am seeing now more than ever, whether it be a summer position or even a post-grad job, that they are onboarding entire teams, entire staff members, new attorneys, interns remotely. So I don't want you to necessarily feel like you need to be tied to a particular location in terms of having efficacy with your job search, because that is not necessarily true. So you're welcome to filter it by remote and offsite work, filter it by city and state. This is a relatively new feature we also have here as well. If you are tied to a particular location for any reason, also narrow it by zip code, and then our tracker here will let you pick your range within 200 miles of said zip code. And then the other options you have here are experience. If you're doing a summer search, then you're going to pick student. The other thing to be aware of in terms of job type, if you're picking for something for the summer after your first or second year, is you're going to pick student position. And then really from there, I mean, we are currently building out our taxonomy to further categorize the options you have here. But if there's a particular area of law that you're interested in, you're more than welcome to filter by legal area. For bar status for student position, there should never, ever be a job in here where the experience level is student, the job type is student, and the bar status is anything but never, because you're not admitted yet, you haven't finished. So those are the different recommends. If there's a particular organization that you're looking for, you can also just type in the employer name or the URL. If you're going to do the URL, make sure it is the root URL. So for example, aclu.org, don't do aclu.org like /CA for California or anything like that. You want to make sure that it's just the root so that the queue pulls all the information you need. So I did already source a few jobs, like I said, for summer opportunities that I'm then going to go through now. So on the page, we've got a few new features and interest and benchmark buttons, and these just indicate for you what type of interest this job is getting. This is helpful for both students and employers in terms of the traffic on the site for a opportunity. This one is ATJ, excuse me, their internship. And it says it's Oklahoma based, but they are very interested in having somebody that's able to work remote. The application deadline is the end of this month, and they are paying, which I know is super important, especially if you're looking for something in the public interest field. Not all opportunities are paying, but this is one of the ones that is, and they're paying a stipend that is $400 per week for the duration of the internship. And then all of the application instructions in terms of what they need and what they require need to be emailed to this email address by the end of this month. And so let's say you were very interested in this position. A feature I want to point out is both our bookmark feature and our email notification feature. So you bookmark it and it will turn orange, yellow, depending on what color you think that is. And then you'll just go here to my bookmarks and notifications, and it'll pull up for you on a list, which I will show you in a few moments. So that's one of the options we have for the summer available. This is another one. This is the Bay Area Legal Aid, and this is in California. They have a little bit of flexibility as well in terms of whether or not you need to be in California to do the position. They previously had a very strong preference for students that had to be in California, but as they've put in both the call of the job and a whole section, which is also happening more frequently, jobs are putting their own pandemic remote work provisions into their positions. Flexible with the extent for which they require someone to be in any particular place. And this one was just posted today. And this application deadline is in mid-February. It is also rolling. So they recommend you get your applications in as soon as possible. And they have a lot of positions open as well. And again, the bookmark feature and the email feature. And so when you click my bookmarks and my notifications, let's just refresh this since we added one. This is very important, and I wanted to show you all this. When you first click here, it's going to show you this page, and I don't want you to think the bookmark feature doesn't work, it's broken. It's not that it's broken. We have it separated into making a bookmark for employers, jobs, searches, and resources. So when you hit the tab for jobs, here is everything you've bookmarked and in the order in which you've bookmarked it. And you can sort this by job title, deadline, organization, location, or the deadline notification you've set. And this email notification button, you can remove it and it'll triple check if you're sure. When you first hit it, a box will pop up and notifying you that you're going to get an email 72 hours out from the deadline to remind you, hey, you said you were interested in this. It behooves you to take another look at it, delete it, etc. All of the email notifications go to the email address you have associated with your PSJD account. That email address is usually going to be your school account, so that your school can verify that you are a current student in an active program there. And then once you're all set, like I said, this feature is super helpful and important, and there are no limits to the number of entries you can put in here. So you can bookmark things as frequently or as infrequently as you would like. Before I continue, are there any questions?
Kelsey Lee, I have a quick question.
Sure.
When searching for positions that are paid, it looked like there was a salary and it mentioned, less than 15,000. Is that how a student, if they wanted to initially, and again, you're right, there are few paid public interest positions, but if they wanted to search for paid ones, how would they do that?
Great question. So yes, right now with the way our taxonomy and organization is built out, if you wanted to search for a paid position, you can use that button. I would say though that you have a chance, excuse me, of missing some of the ones that are paid because some employers will put unpaid pro bono here because they're not 100% certain how much the stipend is going to be, and they're not certain if they're going to be able to offer it. The other option that we have is some organizations will help you find funding and then supplement whatever funding they're able to help you procure. Those organizations will also put unpaid here. So yes, you can absolutely choose that option here for salary level less than 15,000, but it will limit some possible funding opportunities later. But I have a whole section towards the end for both summer and post-grad opportunities on how to secure funding for any positions that you're interested in that are unpaid.
Thanks.
No problem. Okay, so now I'm going to shift to post-grad job search. For the most part, it is very similar to your summer search. Your filter options are just going to be different. And so again, I went through the sidebar earlier, options you can choose. As you've seen, I've picked remote offsite. The thing that is going to experience for immediate post-grad, you're going to choose entry level. And then for bar status, the only one I would recommend not picking is never, for obvious reasons, but there are a wide variety of public interest jobs available with a variety of bar status options. There are some that you need to be admitted by the time you apply. There are others that they'll wait up to a year after you've started. And so you can really tailor your search depending on the options that you choose there. And then it'll sort of pull up whatever is currently active on the site. The other filter I've used for today, excuse me, is by the state of Michigan. And so Michigan Advocacy Program has a staff attorney position that's been open. This deadline is rolling. It's been open for a while. And while they do prefer that you be in Michigan, they also have room for you to be remote and work off-site, and your bar membership is required after you've started, and it's an entry-level position. And so they go through the position, what it requires, what they would like for the application, and then the application form. And it's a Google form that they gave us that we've imported into this job opportunity. Something to note is this is a separate application. So you have the form and then all of the additional paperwork they require. They want you to email to this email address here. And so, and they have applications that are rolling. They had a priority deadline, but they are taking applications after that. And so that's something else that's important to be aware of. A priority deadline is different than like a firm deadline, and some jobs will accept applications after that priority deadline has passed. And so if that's the case, this will stay up on the site. And another position is Lakeshore Legal Aid. They're hiring a pro bono staff attorney. Very similar to the last position I showed you. This one was just posted yesterday, and they're accepting applications through until the middle of next month. And so again, very, very similar. They would like you to apply by visiting their website, and they have their own link embedded in the website. And then the other item I wanted to show is that there is your regular sort of post-grad entry-level attorney position, and then there are post-grad fellowships, and post-grad fellowships are different in the way that they are both funded and the duration period for which they run. Some are a year, some are 2 years, et cetera. And we have an entire separate search built out into PSJD for fellowships. And so it's important to note here that this side panel, again, you can filter by all things I've talked about: location, remote work, non-remote work, bar status, but for fellowships, option here to search based on its funding. So internally funded means you don't need to go and do any extra work to procure any money to have the job. The organization funds the position themselves. Some of them are academic and clinical based in nature, and some of them are project based, where the organization has the work for you and will assist you with finding the money to work there. And we have a lot of post-grad fellowships built into the site. Fellowships are the only type of job that they do not expire from the site. You can tell that a job is not currently active, but has not expired with this little lighthouse. It's the archive notice. So if you click a job that is like that, this is going to be the first thing you see, that this fellowship is no longer available. And it might be because it was recently available and has just expired, or this date could be, 2018, 2019. Fellowships are offered on a cyclical basis, and we update them on that cycle. Due to the pandemic, that cycle has recently been shifted. And so some stopped offering fellowships, some have recently restarted them. So it really depends on the organization itself, but we archive and keep them for informational purposes so that students can take a look if they see something that they're interested in. Maybe the employer is going to offer it and they haven't yet. Maybe it's going to be up on our site and it's not there. So we find that this is a useful tool for sort of planning your fellowship or post-grad job search accordingly. And I highly recommend using these. Since I've been with PSJD and NALP, I've seen a lot of employers bring back fellowships they haven't had in the last couple of years, which is pretty exciting. Before I dive into the calendar and a couple of fellowships that are currently being offered, does anybody have any questions? Okay, so now I am going to run through a couple of these fellowships. So yeah, here we go. So this one is a New York-based pro bono fellowship. This is a public interest law firm, and it's a 2-year fellowship. And this one, they were not offering for a while, but they have now changed their minds. So in addition to a full salary, they have their own separate loan repayment program for school. They have full benefits, and they work well with their associates to try to place them in particular areas that they do a lot of their pro bono work. So they do a lot of work with legal aid in New York, and they do a lot of work with kids in need of defense. And this one was posted, I think, yesterday. And their application deadline is also mid-February. And they also have a contact here too. If you have any questions, you can email Elizabeth for this position. And then you can also just apply, and this goes straight through to their application portal. And even though it's only been up actually less than a day, it's gotten a pretty decent amount of traction on the site. This is another public interest law firm. They contacted me specifically to update their fellowship, which they'd stopped offering. And so as I previously mentioned that some employers are renewing their fellowship offers, this is one of them. And they've been running post-grad fellowships for a long time. I wanna say 25 plus years. And so they have a very well-oiled machine for their post-grad fellowship legal opportunities. They run for 2 years, they've got a whole office for it, and they have multiple different practice areas that you can switch between during the course of your fellowship. And so they just put this one up. And the firm is based, I believe, in New Jersey, but one of their main offices is also in New York. And same thing, they have the entry-level requirement. Bar membership is after that. You can be admitted to the bar after you start, and they have several legal areas that they are affiliated with. So let's say in particular, you find a fellowship that you like. Again, we have the bookmark feature. You can bookmark it and it'll show up in the same notification bar I mentioned previously. The other option that we offer is a fellowship calendar. And so the fellowship calendar is under the Explore Advice tab. In this tab, you'll see at the bottom, actually, you know what, I'll just show it to you, just kidding. Our Explore Advice tab, we have a postgraduate fellowship section, and then we have a calendar. This calendar is not exportable to your own personal calendar, but anything that you've bookmarked that is a fellowship, you can organize it by deadline, excuse me, and it'll show up in a particular calendar by the deadline that they have listed, or you can organize it by the date that it was posted. Because I mentioned previously that fellowships never expire, you can also go back. So if you're looking from a fellowship from 2018 that is renewing their offerings for the 2022 cycle, you can click this button and it'll go all the way back. It only goes back up to 5 years for the current year, and take a look at some previous employers, previous fellowships that you may have been interested in. For whatever reason, if it looks, that's totally fine. We also have a list view. And so you can just take a look at it from a list. That archive feature is right here immediately available. And the ones that are not archived are either currently being offered or have just renewed and given us new information that we then put onto the site. And then the only other thing I wanted to show all of you is, irrespective of whether or not you were looking at a post-grad fellowship or looking for a summer position, funding can be something that is difficult to come by. So we have our own entire separate funding primer on the site. And so it's separated by funding sources and funding primers. The primer is basically the different types of funding options. So you can get funding from the government. You can get funding from a union within a state or a locality that's offering money for a public interest position. There are lots of different locations you can get them. Certain law schools, even if it's not your law school, will offer funding for summer positions or post-grad fellowships, bar associations, etc. This section of the site is currently being updated by me, and I'm almost done. So all of this information should be up to date pretty soon. And then the other thing are your sources. So the primary, and then the sources are a guide to the actual scholarships, organizations, how much funding they're offering, what they require from you, what their application process is. And so you're welcome to separate this by region and or by date. This is also being updated by me. So I'm updating both simultaneously. Some of these things are, they're not current, and some of them are current. I just have to switch out the year from 2021 to 2022. But I highly recommend you take a look at some of these and review them. Excuse me. I know Pili for sure is doing their funding, and I believe their application deadline has yet to pass, but it's coming. So I highly recommend taking a look at this, because they used to require you to be in a particular place, and now they're offering remote funding for summer internships. So I really enjoy this particular source, because sometimes organizations, they tell you to go find the money, but they don't tell you where to look, which is not my favorite thing. So we try to make that easier for you here at PSJD. Are there any questions?
This is not necessarily a question, but I'm excited to see that you have those lists of funding sources. That's a common question from our students. So glad to be reminded of that extra resource. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It makes sense that it's a question. It's not very helpful when someone tells you to go find something and gives you no direction on where you could possibly find it. So yeah, we work hard to keep that available for students.
Chelsea, I'm going to just quickly, for some students who might be 1Ls, for example, might not really know what post-grad fellowships are. And just generally, what they are kind of limited term. So 1, 2, but we saw that one that was up to 5 years.
Yeah.
Positions at public interest organizations, and they could either be different types. Some are funded by that organization and you'd be working on the organization, or some are you need to find your own host organization, and then the fellowship is a sponsor that would, pay your salary essentially for you to work at the organization. So it can be, some people describe a post-grad fellowship, particularly the ones that are more project-based. There's Equal Justice Works that has project-based ones, Staten, that those can be kind of you shaping, in a way, sort of your dream job after law school, because you can create a project that you want to work on. Those normally, we will have CSO will put on a program later in the spring to talk more about post-grad fellowships, but oftentimes you have to apply and prepare for those in advance. So we recommend 2Ls who are interested in public interest work to definitely come to that CSO program if you have an interest in post-grad fellowships, because you will want to be working on researching different fellowships and putting together applications over this your 2L summer. And then many of those applications have deadlines early fall of your 3L year.
Yeah, absolutely. We offer, I mean, those are constantly listed on the site. I would encourage folks to also take a look at maybe smaller organizations and or government organizations. They have a lot of post-grad fellowships and they have their own funding. It's not to have those available and to offer them to students, and they can be for a variety of durations as well.
All right, great, thank you. Students, do you have any other questions for either of us in the CSO or Chelsea Lee while we have her on the call? I'll give you another minute to think about it. In the meantime, I'm going to put our feedback form in the chat for any of the students who would like to give input on future programs as well. It can be public interest related or something more general. In addition to that, I forgot to mention at the beginning, but anyone on the call who is not already a member of the Public Service Law Society, or the Public Interest, sorry, the Public Interest Law Society, I highly recommend you reach out and look how you can be an active participant in that organization. You can become aware of many more opportunities similar to this throughout your schooling. So thank you all for attending. We'll probably hang out here for another couple of minutes if anyone thinks of a question. But thank you for showing up today.
Thank you.